Mo'adim b'simcha rabotai. We're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Kilayim. We're up to Perek Vav, Mishnah Bet. We just discussed in the previous Mishnah an aris, which is a group of vines that are trained on the wall. Commonly, the way it was that you would have a crisscrossing strips of wood extending outwards from the top of the wall. It would make a roof over the area next to the wall. That's usually known as a trellis. Therefore, the Mishnah is going to refer to it as trellised vines. The Mishnah now is going to discuss a case of an aris, this vineyard that was trained on a wall, that's on a raised area of land and extends over a field that's on a lower level. Aris shehu yotze min hamadrega, an aris that extends outwards from a raised area of land so that the vines attached to the aris form a canopy over the field that's next to it. If you could see a diagram, it would make it much easier. You have a farmable area and you have a trellis of vines going over it. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Im omed ba'aretz ubotzeret kulo, if someone who is standing on the ground of the field can reach up and harvest all the grapes of the aris without climbing onto a ladder or onto the raised area, then it prohibits 4 amot in the field beyond the area of the aris, because the entire area is considered the site of the vineyard. As we learned in the previous Mishnah yesterday, you are not allowed to plant other species within 4 amot of the aris. If the grapes can be harvested without climbing onto a ladder onto the elevated area, the entire area beneath the vine is considered the site of the vineyard. Therefore, you would not be allowed to plant other species not only directly beneath the vines, but also 4 amot beyond the roofed area. The same law would apply when the aris is on the same level as the field. The Mishnah is teaching that even when the vines were planted on a separate raised area, if the overhead vines can be reached without climbing it, then it's asur to plant other species 4 amot beyond the roofed area. Now, although it's asur to plant other species within 4 amot of the overhead vines, the Rav tells us if someone violated the halacha and planted in that area, only what's planted within 6 tvachim of the area would actually become asur. The imlav, but if he's not able to reach all the grapes without using a ladder or going up on the higher area, eno ser ela kinegdo, the aris prohibits only planting other species only opposite it, meaning only in the part of the field that is directly beneath it, but not in the form beyond the area, because if the grapes cannot be reached while standing in the field, the area beneath the vines is not treated as part of the aris, and only the area that's directly beneath the overhead vines will be forbidden for planting. And the Rav tells us even planting in the lower level, it would be allowed on the lower level, even within 4 amot of the base of the vines growing on the upper level, since it's not on the same level. It's only when it would be directly beneath it. The Mishnah now is going to discuss a standard vineyard, back to the regular case where you allow it to grow whichever way, you're not training it. When we plant other species next to a vineyard, we have to distance them. We said 4 amot from the vineyard. When you plant next to an individual vine, we said that you only have to distance it 6 tvachim. That was yesterday's Mishnah. Now, in order to be considered a vineyard, we know Beit Hillel says it has to be at least 2 rows of vines. The Mishnah now is going to discuss whether 2 rows of vines combine to create a vineyard if one's planted on the ground and the other one is planted on a raised area. Rabbi Eliezer says, if a person plants 1 row of vines on the ground and 1 row on the raised area, the halacha is like this. Im gavoa min haaretz 10 tvachim, if the raised area is 10 tvachim higher than the ground, and a mitzterefet ima, then the row on the raised area does not combine with the row on the ground below to make a vineyard, meaning each row is considered separately, because since a vineyard has to have at least 2 rows, the rows of the vine are not considered a vineyard, and the other species can be planted 6 tvachim away. You don't have to go 4 amot. V'im lav, but if the raised area is not 10 tvachim higher than the ground, harezu mitzterefet ima, the row on the raised area combines with the row on the ground below to make a vineyard. Therefore, you would have to separate 4 amot from the vines in order to plant other species. The Rav does tell us that the Chad does not follow Rabbi Eliezer. That is in Rabotai Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel now, back to the aris, the group of at least 5 trained vines. When you have such vines trained on a trellis, again that wooden framework, other species have to be distanced 4 amot from the edge. The Mishnah was discussing, now the Mishnah is going to discuss a single trellis vine. Even though the other species don't have to be distanced 4 amot from the edge of the trellis, you are not allowed to plant directly beneath the vine. The Mishnah now is going to speak about planting beneath the part of the trellis where the vine has not yet reached. So you have a trellis, let's say, goes a certain distance, but the vines didn't go all the way there yet. Hamadle et gefen al miktzat apif yarot. If a person trains a grapevine on part of the canopy of the trellis, lo yavi zera el tachat hamutar, he may not plant other seeds beneath the rest of the canopy, because since the purpose of this trellis is to serve the grapevine, the owner considers it secondary to the grapevine. Therefore, it has the same status as the grapevine, and you would not be allowed to plant other seeds beneath the entire trellis, even beneath the section where the grapevines did not reach yet. But if he did plant under other seeds under the section of the roof where the vine is not yet growing, it does not cause the grapes or the other species to become asur. However, it's only if he planted other seed beneath the area where the vine did not yet grow. If he plants it beneath the vine itself, then it would be forbidden to benefit from. However, if the vine grew further and its new growth went out onto the part of the trellis that's located above the species, the produce becomes asur, meaning the other produce that's now located directly below a grapevine would therefore become forbidden, and the produce, the Mefarshim tell us, only becomes asur once it has increased 1/200th of its total new size after the grapevine extended over it, like we said earlier in Perek Hey, Mishnah Vav. The same halacha is when a person, instead of using a trellis, he trains a grapevine on part of a barren, non-fruit-bearing tree in a similar way to the trellis. Since the tree is barren, the owner views it again as secondary to the grapevine. Therefore, the tree has the same status as the grapevine, and you would not be allowed to plant other seeds even under the parts of the tree where the grapevine is not yet growing. And same as in the other case, if he did plant other seed beneath the area where the vine was not yet growing, he transgressed the issue of climb of the vineyard, but the grapes and other species would not become prohibited. However, again, if he planted beneath the vines themselves, the produce would be forbidden to benefit from. And we're going to explain right now the laws of the trees in the next Mishnah, and also later on, what does it mean a barren tree? That is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.